I've made over $970. Just this past month in June, I've made roughly $460. Think about that, going from $0 to $460 per month, and it's only growing. I think the lighting setup for this video may be almost as weird as the acronym we use to describe the most powerful companies in the entire world. FAANG, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google. Microsoft may be a little upset they're missing from the table. A lot of people are fascinated by the idea of the contrast between starting their career working for a small startup or at some point going to a startup, in contrast to working for a powerful company that's going to guarantee structure, stability, and high earning potential. When we unpack the most powerful companies in the world, each of the current CEO founders are billionaires. Each of these companies started as a small startup at some point. So if you could perhaps find your way in the right place, the right time, and the right opportunity at one of those startups, for example, if you started at Netflix in the early 2000s, imagine where you would be at today. In this video, I'm going to talk about my thoughts on working for a FAANG type company versus a startup, and then personally talk about the path I chose and what I recommend for anyone that asks me this question as well. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We talk about all things technology, sales. I work in software sales myself. And if you're looking for your dream sales job, or if you're already in sales today, or you just like the video so far and you think the setup could use a little work, make sure to drop a like below on this video right now. When we unpack FAANG, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google, I know people who work for these companies, and it's a great opportunity. If you work for one of those companies, they are the leading technology companies in the entire world. All of their market caps are in the hundreds of billions, some of them even pushing $1 trillion. When we think about the scale that they've reached, they're larger than some entire company's GDPs, which is almost unfathomable. The most valuable assets in the digital age are technology companies, are internet companies. They control the communication. That's why there's so much regulatory pressure around breaking up the power of Facebook. For example, separating Facebook from WhatsApp, from Instagram. And that's why what you've seen in China recently, that they're starting to break up the most powerful technology companies in their country. They've silenced the Jack Ma's of the world, and they're trying to nationalize those assets because they've recognized technology is the most important asset, and that's another reason why you want to make sure to work in technology. So when you're thinking about, should I work for a FAANG company or should I work for a startup, here's the factors that I would think about. Ask yourself, how much of a risk taker are you, and where are you at in life? And by risk, I mean financially, mental health, I mean your physicality as well, because when we think about the time it takes to succeed in a startup environment, it's going to pretty much consume you. You're going to have to wear a lot of hats. It's very risky. You're probably going to get paid less to start, but you potentially have more equity, which means the upside if you start at a startup that has a large exit, aka it gets purchased, it goes public, you have the ability to make perhaps a couple $1 million. But statistically, most startups are going to fail and or not have a great exit. In contrast, if you work for a FAANG company, most likely you're going to immediately have a $100,000 salary. You may get some stock options as well. If you're not much of a risk taker and you like stability, you're perhaps just had a family, you may want to think about that, because you're in a company that's a large bureaucracy and it's not going away anytime soon. And really what I've seen is that these FAANG companies have infinite resources, so they're able to attract top talent. So of course it's a fantastic networking opportunity to be around other smart people and learn process and operations that you could then go take to create your own startup with. Ultimately, you're going to be a cog in the wheel, and these companies try and absorb as much talent as they have just to keep them within house, and you're really not necessarily doing anything, although you have the opportunity to rise to the ranks. If we think about FAANG, Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, worth tens of billions of dollars. Amazon, Jeff Bezos, founder CEO, no longer there, current CEO. Jaffe, billionaire. If we think about Apple, Tim Cook, he started there and worked there for 20, 30 years, has risen up the ranks and is now a billionaire, one of the most powerful people in the world. You could start at Apple tomorrow and perhaps rise up the ranks in 20, 30 years and be the CEO, you never know. Netflix, Reed Hastings, created the company, billionaire. Google, Of course, they had two founders who are both billionaires, no longer involved. And now the CEO is a billionaire, one of the highest paying. I think he made like 200 something million. Sundar Pichai, really interesting guy. You should go check him out. Bottom line is all these FAANG companies pay well. You're going to be a cog in the wheel. You're probably not going to feel a lot of fulfillment or feel like you're going to drive a lot of impact unless you start moving up the ranks. Whereas at a startup, you're going to get paid a lot less. There's going to be a lot of instability. You're going to wear a lot of different hats, but you potentially have larger upside. But I don't know if the trade-off is worth it, because if you work at a FAANG company for 5-10 years, you may make more than you would recognize in a potential great exit for a startup. So ultimately, it's up to you for whatever you're looking for. Here's my recommendation, and here's what I did. Right out of college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I went to Ohio University. No one I knew worked in technology, so I didn't even know that was a field. By luck, I got hired at my current company, who happened to be a fast-growing technology company. Think about this. I joined in 2018. I was employee number 1,400. So pretty large company. We were still private at the time. Fast forward 2 to 3 years later, we ended up getting purchased by SAP, which helped me capitalize on the equity I was given. And then we eventually recently went public. Now we're over 4,000 employees, and I'm more tenured than 75% of the workforce, and I've only been working in my career for 3 years. So I feel like I landed in the middle ground between a startup and a large technology company, because we will be a large technology company, but we're not quite there yet, and I was still able to get equity, and I'm learning a lot of skills. And there was still that contrast between large bureaucracy and really fast-moving, agile, dynamic workplace environment, being in that startup private company where it forces you to be adaptable. Bottom line, you're not going to go wrong with either. At a startup, you're going to learn skills that will then be important. What I would recommend is get a great job at a fantastic company that, of course, will look good on your resume, will pay you well, and get in a job in a company that allows you to learn the skills that you can then go start your own company one day, so that you can then go work for that startup and identify, okay, I've worked for Facebook for 5 years. Who are the up and coming companies that may be able to disrupt Facebook that I want to go work for? It's a really interesting dynamic, and you have the ability to choose. While you're working for one of these great companies, here's what I recommend to everyone. So you're ultimately going to be a cog in the wheel so long as you're an employee. You need to eventually be an owner. You need to have equity. And of course, you're thinking, okay, Trent, I get stock options. You get stock options, that's really important. I recommend you need to get paid well at a great company, and you need to think about what is your X factor. Your X factor is your own side hustle. Your X factor is what you are going to build equity in. My X factor, I realized, hey, even though I'm a top performer, that doesn't really matter. I'm still eventually somewhat capped on earning potential. I'm going to be a cog in the wheel. I would need to work 20, 25 years to maybe rise up the ranks, to have the opportunity to make a couple $100,000, maybe $1 million a year. Eventually, I'm limited because I'm a cog in the wheel. What you got to do is have some sort of side hustle. I started this YouTube channel. Fast forward a year, I've been making videos, no traction. Eventually, I became monetized, meaning I get paid to make videos. Dating back the last 90 days, I've made over $970. Just this past month in June, I've made roughly $460. Think about that, going from $0 to $460 per month, and it's only growing. By the time next year comes around, 2022, I fully believe I will be making upwards of $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month in tandem to my high-paying software sales salary. So that's my X factor. My goal is to make more money online than I do in my software sales job, so that I can combine the two and eventually have the freedom and flexibility to say, okay, maybe I should go start my own company someday. Maybe I should go take a massive risk and work for that small startup and have the potential really high upside. Hey, maybe I use this X factor to get me into a great business school, and then I parlay that into a high-level leadership position at a Netflix, for example. You never know. Bottom line, get a great opportunity, go learn new skills, and start your own side hustle. Learn your X factor and think about, how are you going to get attention? How are you going to stand out? And how do you differentiate yourself? There's so many talented people, and if you work at one of those FAANG companies, you're going to go into work every day with thousands of people that are equally, if not more smart, that have better credentials, that can do just as good, if not better, of a job. So what else are you going to do to stand apart and separate yourself from the pack? It's by having an X factor. It's by starting a blog. It's by doing a podcast. It's by having a YouTube channel. It's by selling something online. It's by figuring out how to put the internet to work. How do you get your money to work? The internet provides you ultimate leverage, and that's how these powerful FAANG companies started as a startup and have grown into $100 billion, if not trillion-dollar companies that are changing the world each and every day. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to drop a like below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you have any questions for me, drop them in the comments, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn if you want to join networks, and I will see you in the next video.